Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are calling in from. We have folks on this call from Hawaii all the way over through to Spain. I know that at least, and everybody in between. So wonderful to see all of you beautiful folks finding your way here to talk about the cross-generation conversation and what does that mean for retreat. My name is Michael, and I'm the network manager for RCC. And we also have Peter and Pam, who are fellow colleagues with RCC here on the call as well. I'm just gonna, before I introduce our roundtable leaders today, I'm just going to ground us. So I do just invite you to take your hands off your keyboard and put your pencil down and just take a breath with me. Find your body here. Allow yourself to arrive to this circle, this virtual circle. We give gratitude for our days, whether they're just beginning or midway or ending. And we give gratitude for all the people who have crossed our paths so far today. We give gratitude for our own journey and our own stories. And we just bring all of that with us. And we set aside what we need to set aside so that we can be present to this roundtable conversation. Grateful for the ability to be here today and grateful for this circle that is gathered. So just big breath in and let out. Beautiful ones. We are the ones that are meant to be here today. I'm so thrilled to welcome Gloria and Linda from Ratnaling, who pitched this roundtable idea. I'm so grateful to them for kicking off our first ever RCC roundtable conversation. These will be slightly different than our community calls, and I'm just so thrilled for the two of you. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Yay. Thank you, Michael, for that grounding. So sweet to be guided by you. Welcome, everyone, RCC. We love RCC. So inspired by the retreat we had with you all recently, all the provocative questions. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit, and as well as Linda. My name is Gloria, and Linda is our director at Ratnaling Retreat Center. We are rooted in, our center is rooted in Tibetan Buddhism. We are in Northern California. And I'm going to tell you all why I was inspired to offer this discussion to you all. I've been at Ratnaling for about 8 years. And I would say the first 2 years, it was very obvious with me and my peers. I'm 45, by the way, um, where we felt constantly just ignored, unheard, disrespected by the elders in our retreat center. Um, and we just felt really disempowered. And, we watched a lot of really good people leave our staff because they just didn't feel valued and respected. The few of us that stayed really cared about the bigger vision, but there was always an unrest of staying and feeling unheard and just a bitterness toward the older generation. And so then when I went to this RCC retreat, we spent a lot of time with the Enneagram and the personalities and this and that. And I couldn't help but feel like so much of like my struggles and my tensions with different people, not only in the organization, but maybe even in my family, has so much to do with our age, what we experienced, and then what we think we know, being in the younger generation and or um, being with technology. I also noticed that working with folks who are in their 20s or their 30s, I started to notice my own deep judgments about them. They're always on their phone. God, they're so sensitive. They're so sensitive. They're just so sensitive. They can't handle, any comment, or they're too tired. Everything's so overwhelming. They can't even do a task because their phone has overwhelmed them. Right. So then I noticed my own judgments about the younger generation. Maybe some of you can relate. So I love this topic because clearly this isn't just about workplace. This is totally, as I was preparing these slides, has so much to do with how I relate to my family, but the stuff we bring in to the workplace, and particularly in workplaces, as we shared at our retreat, that the retreat centers are big places of transformation and places that the big wide world seeks to come for bigger and better answers. And so I love this discussion because it has everything to do with inclusion and diversity, has everything to do with compassion and deep listening. And so that's what this is about. And I also want to introduce my friend who I collaborate with, but also my mentor, our leader, Linda Copenhagen. And Linda, please share a little bit about yourself and maybe your age. If
I can start with that. I'm definitely baby boomer generation. I'm 71. And I guess just briefly, I've been a director here at Rottnest since October of 2020 when I was asked by our lead llama to come and take over as I during the pandemic. Gloria has been my partner in kind of bringing the center back alive and really doing some great accomplishments since then. Um, my background is in business and technology companies. It's not in any of these kind of a lot of the typical areas where we're having retreats. But I've been studying in this Nyingma art tradition since the mid 90s. So I have a deep knowledge of, and I practiced on BART and on my way to work. And because I had three little kids and more than full-time jobs. So I really applied everything I was learning in the evenings at the Nyingma Institute in Berkeley to my life. So that's, I guess, kind of my spot in all of this.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. And, I was inspired to offer this with Linda because I do think Linda is an exception of the elders that I've come across and worked with. And I just want to say I'm very inspired by Linda that even at her ripe age, she's a fan of AI and technology. And, it's quite fun for us to collaborate together. And while we might have personality differences or generational differences. I think she and I have worked really well to listen to each other, respect each other, and still be frustrated with each other at times. So thank you, Linda, for collaborating with me and,
Thank you,
and
Gloria.
accepting all the
I
parts.
see us as a team. I really do. Yeah.
So cool. So we're gonna move into this. Let's get to this next slide. And we are trying to honor the 60-minute mark today. So, why we think this matters? Clearly, we work across ages, roles, and life stages within our communities and our teams. And we really want to acknowledge that each generation carries different assumptions, uh, implicit biases, right, about work, about what leadership should look like or feel like, about what life should be like. And then what the future may or may not hold. I hold that with a lot of compassion with us as we witness a lot of things and we can see more things happening in the media. Knowledge is more accessible to us than it ever has been. And sometimes I have a deep compassion for our children who have been raised on screens, and them knowing more than we can protect them from. But just how do we envision our future? We all know that retreat work requires deep trust, right? Safety, um, kindness, and we use this word care, and then collaboration. Where it's not just everything goes just because Linda said it and she's the director, or just because the elders said it. We just submit to the elders. Um, I think there's a lot more at play these days, a lot more than there ever
Yeah. Yeah.
how I feel. So, Linda, do you want to add to this?
No, I mean, I think you have it. I think there's our organization will find out as we go on if how representative we are because the elders here have studied with the Lama who founded, a global work, and so they feel like they have a special position. And I don't know if that's true of other places or not. So maybe Mount Madonna, I would guess. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, no, it's all of these are good points. And at my age, I really see I have three millennial kids, and I really see, the effects of, you know, the differences in our lives and with some level of perspective. When you have more experience, this is not preachy or anything, but it's just like the pieces fit together in different ways the more you know. Yeah.
I think I want to take this time to, for each person on this call to think about why this topic might interest you. Have you been struggling with that director or that coworker? And then similarly, right? Have you been struggling with the elders in your family or your kids as the younger generation? Yeah, just if you can reflect on that or even jot some thoughts about that in your journal, that's going to be really helpful as we go through this conversation. Kind of the questions of what are my regular comments about the elders, or what are my regular comments about the younger generation, and just start to notice it, and then maybe through this conversation we can reframe it and come up with a new statement or judgment about those generations. That's what I'm going to invite us to do. Linda, do you want to share on this?
I don't see the slides anymore. Are you sharing them? I
I
see
thought
you.
We're back
that
to
I,
the main screen without the slides.
Yes, I think you need to reshare that. There you go.
It's frozen right now. Oops. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, human beings can easily tend to think of things as problems, especially if we don't agree with them or we feel blocked. And when we do that, in my view, we kind of miss an opportunity because, especially now with the rate of change that we've had in the last, say, 50 years, each generation knows things that the previous generation didn't, and vice versa. So, yeah, I think that's why this is important because we don't want to cut ourselves off from knowledge as a way to make things better.
yeah. Yeah, so this slide is generations are not problems to fix, but wisdom streams to learn from, right? We all have heard that, this is an opportunity, right? When we struggle, right? When we struggle or when we have these tensions or conflicts, this is an opportunity clearly for growth. There's something here that's new and uncomfortable for me. There's something here that's new and uncomfortable for me. And where can I um, soften, breathe into it, and just flow a little bit more like water into this situation?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Linda, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, a helpful reframe. So, if we look at what shapes our own views and attitudes and perspectives, there's some key factors. Generations are shaped by economic conditions, cultural movements, technology and communication norms, and collective trauma and hope. And I'm sure each of us can think of something in our generation that represents or that these things represent. Economic conditions, the one thing that stands out to me and is how much the economy has just kept growing and keep creating opportunities. And um, I think that that may be changing now, and we have to really understand the concerns of maybe the younger generations that aren't as secure in, if I just get more education and work harder, I'll get a better job and I'll make more money. I'm not sure how true that is anymore. Cultural movements, I mean, we have a big one right now that our kids will remember. Um, technology and communications, this is where I think many times a younger generation has the edge that we need, and then collective trauma and hope. Yeah, it's just, you could think of the traumas during each of your lives and how that shapes, I mean, we could go on about all of them, but we don't have a lot of time. But these are factors that are really important, I think, to recognize in ourselves as well as to recognize in others. And appreciation is a word that we use a lot here. It's really, you can use these as little triggers for appreciation as well.
Yeah, maybe if everyone could take a moment to think of any of these factors that you remember personally or globally. One of the first things that come to mind for me was 9/11. I was all of what, 20-ish years old. That was huge. It was a very, very heavy, traumatic thing that impacted me as like this international college student. And that colored a lot of how I viewed the future and politics and the economy. So I kind of want each of you to think of what was that thing that really like shook you as a person, or I think for some of us too, just the onset of Instagram or Facebook, how that really started to change our brain or our time, how we view time. Cultural movements, Linda had brought up that her generation were the folks that really kind of brought in not just the hippies, but the the spiritual gurus really
Our
welcomed
Eastern traditions seem like they came along during our generation. Yeah.
in the 70s. Those are a lot of sort of the root gurus we know about today. Shivananda, Chogyam Trungpa, Tartong Tulku, um, Vivekananda, all of those. I mean, just thinking of the cultural movements that really colored your time. Um, yeah, so maybe write that down for you personally. Um, all right, Linda will speak about
Baby
this.
boomers. Okay, so now we're going to have a slide just briefly about some of the factors, that may be representative of the different generations. So baby boomers, this is the kind of standard time frame that's assigned to that age group. They were a gigantic age group. Um, and I remember when I was in middle school, one of my teachers saying, "You guys are a huge, gigantic demographic, and you're going to have a big influence on what happens." I always kind of remembered that somehow. Um, but what are our values? Commitment. We want to, we still value commitment to our families, to our children, to our jobs, to our companies, to our organizations. Stewardship, my sense, I may be wrong, but my sense also was that during this generation was the kind of nascent beginnings of the environmental movements, Greenpeace, Sierra Club. Well, they may have started earlier actually, but the environmental movement feels like we used to drive 10 blocks to take our recycling and all that stuff. And loyalty, I associate that also with the great generation, the one before us, but we got that, I think. Strengths at work, because a lot of our work lives began before technology, really. The view was a little different. Things didn't change quite as quickly. It took longer to do things. And maybe we have a longer term vision. Relationship building, very important. Institutional memory. This is one that is very true. And sometimes, and even in jobs I've been in my 60s or 50s, it's like, it's very hard when somebody says, well, yeah, well, you do know the history, the implication being you don't really know anything right now. That's a hard one. Um, and yeah, we say what I've built, will it be respected and sustained? And I have a big question about that at Rotnaling right now, what I've built and Gloria and I built, and will it be sustained? But yeah, so this is some of the characteristics that might be a little stronger in the baby boom generation than in others. Does anybody want to add anything? We don't have a lot of time, but
You can also disagree with these because
or
we
just
will have breakout sessions.
Yeah, we
to
will have breakout sessions for these
yeah,
things.
we're
Yeah.
about to break down the four generations that are kind of popular on the planet right now.
Okay, Gen X. Values. So this is people born in 65 to 80 approximately. What are their values? Self-reliance, competence, and balance. I remember it's like the work-life balance. I started seeing as this generation came into the workforce more is a better um, concern with work-life balance than my generation might have had, at least in the industries that I was in. Strength at work, calm problem solving, translating across generations. Maybe they're a kind of a conduit as well, and they value operational leadership. And they might carry, I'm holding a lot quietly.
Hmm. That one's interesting. Thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah, and if you are in this generation, maybe again, see if you disagree or think about that.
yeah.
So
Millennials. So these are my kids. So I have views
I'll
about this.
share on this because this is a little bit more my generation.
Okay, you want to
Uh,
do it?
yeah. So our values tend to be we want meaning. We want this to be relevant. We don't want to just do it because they told you to do it. Right? So we want meaning in our lives, and that's where we value collaboration. We don't think just our elders. It's not just respect your elders. It's like, can we respect each other? So collaboration matters to us. Equity, same thing. Every voice matters, right? We're more interested in circles than we are in, hierarchy.
Pyramids.
And again, that just comes with, again, we're like, I don't know when they decided if we were digital natives, but we were like the natives in the digital world. And to be called like a digital native, you're like, oh, whoa, we had email. We had email. Who had Hotmail and MySpace, right?
Yeah, I
So
was going to say your generation is totally credited with the whole sharing, um, at least from what I have seen, and the whole sharing. I don't know what you call it, but share, ride shares and house shares, and and then Facebook, and of course that was, I mean, MySpace, then Facebook, then everything else was really, I think the millennial generation really made all that happen.
yeah. Um, so sorry, I'm clicking the
The other thing
wrong.
about millennials is that they're a gigantic, also a very gigantic generation. They were also called early on the echo boom because they're almost as big or as big as the baby boomers.
Hmm. So we believe, or it is said, that the strengths at work for a millennial is they have EQ. So they're more
Mm.
feely. They have emotional intelligence. They can kind of read how people are feeling and base things on that, versus just kind of being professional. Community care, definitely looking out for each other and the group and the culture. And the mission alignment, always kind of going back to big picture. Does this relate to our mission? Does this relate to our mission? If it doesn't, we shouldn't do it. Does this relate to our mission? Um, and then, yeah, the question millennials tend to carry is this worth my energy and values? So big questions for millennials is like, I'm not sure what we've been doing has been working. I'm still doing it, but I don't know if it's been working. So then we move into the Gen Zers. So here I think of, our kids or my stepdaughter, um, and kind of what they're facing right now and why they're so fun and why we love them. Right? They have these values of authenticity, right? Because I laugh at the things that's on YouTube, right? Everything is all about like real and everyone's just like selfieing their real life, right? In their pajamas or whatever. So authenticity has become sort of a cultural thing. We're not trying to put on. Um, mental health is valued. Why is it a value? Because we see so much craziness happening, or time has changed again, or brains have changed because of the amount of information just loaded mentally on everyone, but specifically, I would say our children, if we're raising them with screens. Justice and accountability. These kids are so privy to all the horrible things that have happened worldwide and within our nation and within race and gender and so they're very clear, like it's time for justice and accountability to hold people, or our leaders accountable, or our politicians accountable for all the wrongs that are injustices across the world and in our nation. So we see that as big parts of that generation. Um, where we love them at our retreat center, they tend to have clear boundaries. Like, nope, not going to do that today. I'm going to do some self-care. Um, right? Or fresh perspectives, really fresh. It's very, somehow they have knowledge from the internet, or, they're fans of AI, and chat says some really good things to them. Some of my Gen Zer friends have chat GPT as their therapist. Um, Whatever, no judgment. Okay, so then they name issues early. They can see things maybe before we think they're coming. And again, I think this is um, their their broad view of knowledge. I think a lot because of their access to technology. This question really got me though, and this is where my heart goes out to our younger ones and my stepdaughter. I see her not really caring about the things we used to care about, like school. And what do you want to be when you grow up? Um, I think underlying they have this question is this even sustainable? Is there going to be a planet for me to live on? Will there be water? Are we all supposed to try to live on Mars together? You know, um, are there jobs when there's AI? Like what do you want me to want to be? I really think I see this with the younger folks. So this one is a big one to carry for all of us to reflect on. Um, Good. So Linda will share this, and then I think
Yeah.
in a little.
So we kind of have these kind of questions of places where these things come out in the workplace or the retreat center or our families. Pace versus sustainability. Do we want to get something done quickly or do we want to do it in a way, do I want to I'm planting some vegetables, which you are here at Rotten Ling. Do we just put some chemical fertilizer in to make it happen really fast, or do we really amend the soil in a kind of more natural way? Hierarchy versus collaboration. I saw this in the technology world where all of a sudden developers are all in the same room together instead of everybody in their offices and collaborating live constantly. Loyalty versus boundaries and tradition versus change. Do we keep it because we've always done it, or can we actually suggest that maybe we do it differently? So, yeah, and you may find other ways that happens. I know millennials tend to have a shorter attention span versus maybe a Gen X or a baby boomer, which might be attributed to Sesame Street in my view, because when the kids were little, that's what people were concerned about was is Sesame Street going to affect attention spans? And those of you who are millennials can decide, but it's interesting. The last job I had, it was pointed out that when you go to do a pitch to a millennial in a technology company, you got to be fast. They'll give you 15 minutes and then you got to be done, so it's something to know about the different generations. I don't know if we need to do more with this, Gloria, or we just have
No, I
these
think
kind of noted for the discussion groups.
this is a good time. So friends, hopefully you're writing some notes to yourself about where you are in your generation, and are you an exception? Are you an exception to your generation? Is my question as you go into your breakout groups. We are gonna do, let's see, groups of maybe 3 to 4 people. What's our total count, Michael?
There are 18 of us, including yourselves as leaders.
Oh, awesome. Let's do groups of 3, and we can be random. You'll see maybe you will have same people of the same generation or not. Let's just do like a random breakout. And these are your question, friends. And you can again journal to yourself and share with each other. What are my personal beliefs about work? I think that's that's a fun question. Because right now I'm like, I just want AI to do everything so I can go on vacation. Um, but and then how do my values align with that? You know? But yeah, I would say whether it's my generation or not, or I've watched some of you know I'm the youngest of 10 children. I watched, my elders really struggle to make it and become, executives and really fight for wealth because they were like, we don't want to be poor. But meanwhile, I watched them really struggle, like lose themselves, have failed marriages, and watch their kids, be divorced, like be, products of divorce. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to work so hard for that. I want my work to be aligned with my values and not necessarily just for status or money. So think about that. And then what do you wish others understood about your generation? Yeah, that's a good one. And then what kind of workplace helps you thrive, right? Like we need a ping pong table in our office. We need markers and coloring books. And we need, what what do you think your workplace needs to make you, more creative or more balanced? Yeah, as we see some corporations have their yoga studios and their gym workouts and your meals are provided, things like that. What kind of workplace will help you thrive? A suggestion box, maybe. Meditation before every board meeting, something like this. Okay. Um, let's see, Pam, can we do breakouts with 3 people-ish in each group? And then friends, we have about 10. Let's go at 11 minutes. Does that sound good, Pam? 11 minutes, 3-ish people. And then per person, if you could listen to each other, watch each other's time, share about 2 minutes each, and then collaboratively share. And then we'll come back, jump back into the big group, and maybe one of you will represent your group. Does that work?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, friends. Welcome back. Welcome back. Was that juicy? Did some of us get cut off mid-sentence?
Pretty much.
No, we're all gonna honor time. We just have about 14 minutes left. If you can, we're gonna elect one person from each group. If you could share back, about 1 minute, we'd love to hear it. Um, who can we start with? I'm just gonna call it out randomly. Dan, can you start with, he was in my
Okay.
group.
Yes, yes, I can.
Great.
We have a very nice and fruitful conversation. We finish about 1 hour frame and respectful and disrespectful, respectful relation with time, which I commented depend. Do you make effective communication and fruitful or not? Time 1 hour time can be too much or too less. And what else? In English, it's a bit. So
Oh,
it was very nice, and we talk about that uh, people, the younger people have this kind of. I have a language problem with it.
Oh, thank you,
Yeah,
Dan.
yes, I was in Dan's group and we talked a lot about assumptions. So making assumptions
Yes.
about each other. And Dion, who was also in our group, yeah, Dion was mentioning that we have tools to like cross the bridge, basically. Like, I think she mentioned Myers-Briggs. We have different ways to have conversations with each other, but we also discussed like as Dan was saying, meetings. Like, if you cross my 1 hour, it's an affront to my time, my dignity for maybe my generation. Whereas, like, the older folks, they want to keep talking endlessly. Um, so, yeah,
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you for help.
Thank you,
Thank you
I
Dan.
for
got you,
jumping in.
Dan. We're a team. We're a team.
Yeah, can we have someone else jump in, share about their group?
I can jump in about our group. I don't remember which number it was, maybe 5, but we talked a little bit about what generation we might be in from a numbers standpoint versus what we relate to based on our experience, our life experience, our family experience. Um, but one person who said, um, is Gen X, this is Yolani, if I have your name right, said, at this point, it's like, I just want I'm over it. I just want things to get done. I don't have patience with shenanigans and, goofy stuff. And I just want people to become self-sufficient. And Paul, who is the from an age standpoint, Gen X, but because of family, kind of feels more like a baby boomer, was talking about his son. No, not son, sorry, someone at work who is 21 and who exceeds all expectations about somebody that age. He was out, sick for a couple of weeks, and I think it was she just kind of ran everything. And so there you have a different kind of exception of somebody that's incredibly mature and, at a young age. Um, and then there's this view, and I kind of relate to this as a baby boomer in a way, is we just want to work. We just want to get it done. And then it becomes this distinction of what do you do at work versus what do you do at home? And I think that's probably a generational difference that we could be explored and really seen. But I know I've had that sense myself before. It's like, why are you doing that here? It's like, do that tonight when you get home. And then for me, it was really just what I would, and there was an agreement about this, is that what do I want people to understand about my generation? It could be all 3 of us in this group, is how much, what the value is that we have in terms of knowledge, experience, and perspective. Even though we may not know how to use Chat GPT to be our therapist or whatever, that we do know a lot. And like I described when one of my kids was studying history in middle school and I was reading the textbook with them, it was so much more interesting than it ever was when I was in middle school because I had some kind of perspective. So perspective is something that I think is a value and would like to be appreciated for.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah. And there was agreement in our group on that. Yeah.
Awesome. I don't know if anyone's raising their hand, but I might call on Stephanie because I haven't heard from her today. Did you have anything to share from your group?
I don't think I would do a very good job of encapsulating, so I might ask
Okay.
other people in my group.
I see Alex raising his hand.
Oh, very good.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'm not in
Sorry.
Stephanie's group, but I'd be happy to shout on behalf of Group 3. So I'm a millennial, and we had 2 Gen Xers, although we had a sort of also bridge Gen Xer on the edge of 1979, 1980, that cutoff. And that was, I think, maybe a useful encapsulation of our conversation, which is that where there might be some alignment or resonance with some of these sort of broad descriptions or generalizations of these generational groups. There also is, not homogeneity like across people who are born in these different generations. And some of that is because of generational bleed. Like, we aren't born into these neat little sort of generational boxes. But also, it's also each individual is navigating the world and are influenced by other sort of cultural indicators. So one of the things that was common across all of us was this actual like celebration of collaboration, and in particular intergenerational collaboration. Like I think each of us were excited about working in spaces that were sort of intergenerational. One of the specific things that came up was this, and one of the byproducts of Gen X being a smaller generation kind of wedged between two larger generations is like the opportunities for leadership become really, really strange. So, like Duncan was specifically naming, all of these leadership roles were held by baby boomers, and then by the time that he had the opportunity to kind of step into a leadership role, all of a sudden, all these millennials were right behind him, saying like, "Well, what about us?" Banging on the door. And he reflected a real, I think, like thoughtful and compassionate way of navigating that, which is thinking like, what does transitional leadership look like? Like, how do I occupy this leadership space that I just arrived in a way that honors and allows for the people who are coming behind me. And then Tatiana was really, yeah, like just talking about that sort of like almost like generational code switching, of there are moments when she felt more kind of aligned with some of these sort of Gen X values, but there were also moments where it sort of switched into, particularly when working with people in leadership who were maybe hadn't earned the her respect, that it then became a little bit like, well, why are we doing things this way? And I apologize, Tatiana, if I'm misrepresenting kind of what you were saying. But my main takeaway was that there are kind of useful touch points in sort of thinking about, oh, the other thing that I'll say is that we use these words, but I think sometimes these words can mean different things to different people. Like what does collaboration look like, and what is our relationship to collaboration? And like I had an experience with a leader whose relationship to collaboration was like, you're at the table. I'm bringing you to the table, but that doesn't mean that you actually get to have any say in the decision that's made. Which was a very different relationship to collaboration than I had, and our expectations were misaligned, and so that created some friction. So where there might be kind of overlap or alignment in terms of general things, I think being able to name like I like collaboration, and here's what I mean by that, can be an important tool for communicating. Okay, I'm going to wrap up because I've been talking for a long time, but I'm really grateful to my whole group and to all of you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Alexander. I really love that final point about what does collaboration actually mean to you? Can we define what collaboration is first? Friends, I want to wrap this up for us. I know there's so much juiciness in this, but I know a lot of people got to go. But the hope is that you can have these slides and these reflections to share with your friends, your family, and your workplace. These are our final thoughts. How do you bridge practices for retreat teams? Well, we understand story before we assume the strategy. So what does that mean? Really doing our best, right? We're going to do our best to consider people's experiences and buy-in or their suggestions or their past before we assume what is best for the team. I could break that down, but just that's the thought. It's just, can you do more information seeking, more questioning, more curiosity before you think this is what we're doing? And, including having a community meeting. Maybe a community meeting isn't the best method for your group. So we have to get creative with what that looks like. Maybe it's just everyone should email their thoughts quietly or something like that. We write clear expectations for roles and responsibilities. I think some organizations don't have this, and I think it should be revisited. Really, is your specific role defined on paper? Is it a public thing that you could easily put on if you were to leave today or die today? Could someone post your job description? Not for your name, because that's what you're good at, but your job description. And then that can help sometimes for clarity about people staying within their lanes and who is expected to do what. We create mentorship in both directions. So, my thought would be like, hey, Arwen, why don't you teach Linda how to use ChatGPT? And then Linda, why don't you teach Arwen how to, look at the finance spreadsheet or something like that. I don't know. Something that we're both good at, but both parties are valued for what they bring to the table. Um, Naming grief, loss, and fatigue. Maybe I don't, not all cultures are, I mean, literally all cultures, ethnicities, but not all community and work cultures allow this. But when we can name it even just personally, like, you know what? I grieve the old days when we didn't do everything on our screen. I'm sad that we were always doing I'm going to say that we're always on our screens. I'm fatigued that we are always on our screens. So just naming it and then sharing stewardship of mission, always bringing our mission back to the forefront of even just our smallest meetings. We think we're just talking about, okay, who's on cleanup and who's doing this kitchen duty and who's running these lodge activities, who's doing housekeeping, but let's come back to the mission of like we're here to care for people. We want people to have a transformative experiences, and the way they can do that is when we create a really beautiful, safe space for them. And that's why we care about housekeeping, and that's why we care about good meals. Final reflection is where might we unintentionally favor one generation style? And where can we listen more deeply, be curious, ask questions, and have compassion and respect for others' experiences? Linda, will you take us home with this slide?
Yeah, so I have to, okay, here we go. I had to move this thing around. If we are working for a world of peace and understanding, are we willing to include everyone? And I think that could mean everyone everywhere. And it can also mean everyone that we have to, that we not have to, that we end up with in our environments or our workspaces for one way or another. And part of it is the skill of being able to see what someone is good at or what they're inclined to do and be able to be flexible. We work at Rotten Ling with volunteers that Arwen actually brings in, and it's not like we're putting out a job description and having 50 people apply. It's like we put who wants to volunteer and come for 6 months to Rotten Ling, and then we figure out where they fit. And so there's certain amount of flexibility and care in terms of the happiness of the person. We have somebody right now that's in maintenance that has a leg problem and so can't do that much maintenance, and so we're trying to work with how we can all support that person and he can also still be productive. So yeah, and recognize our own biases.
All right. Well, Linda, thank you so
Like
much. You guys, we're
finding
2 minutes past
ourselves
time. And I
do
don't know,
it.
Michael, did you want to close us out?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
just want to say a huge thanks to the two of you for leading us through, just like a skim of an amazing thing we should all be thinking about, a topic that it definitely applies to all of us. And it's reminded me, I work with a lot of seniors, and so it's just reminded me that, to have a common table, we need to understand what kind of chair we're sitting in at that table and how that, applies. So I'm so grateful to the two of you for taking the time, volunteering your time to create this presentation together with great slides and to facilitate us in this hour. I just want to say that if you haven't become a member yet of RCC, a paid member, I just would invite you to reach out to me if you'd like more information. And I will say that if that's a struggle for your center, we do have a funder who's willing to subsidize some a portion of folks' membership. And in 2 days, we have our next community call with Robert Mulhall. It'll be Sacred Self-Care. This is going to be a session where we actually just pause and breathe and note that the world is spinning so fast right now. And it will be a moment of just grounding and love and compassion. So I hope to see you in 48 hours on that call. And I just hope you all have a great day. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.